Hi, everyone. I'm Joe Lodin. I'm a technical writer who cares a whole lot about cross-functional technical writing, or what you as a technical writer can do to work with other teams in your company and what they can do for you in your content. This is a very hastily thrown together slide deck, so let's get through it. So for those of you who might be in a more isolated writer role and not working cross-functionally, just a quick overview of some of the benefits I think you can get from working with other teams. As a writer, getting perspectives throughout the company can help inform your content, make it better informed. You can identify holes in your documentation based on how other teams are using it, and you can get other teams invested in docs as well by just engaging with them. But as a collaborator, consider that this is a two-way relationship. As a writer, what you can give to elsewhere in the organization is you can give feedback to build better products, to build better processes, and in my experience, you can even bridge gaps between teams if you're a go-between between these different content silos. So the best way to approach cross-functional relationships I've found is by learning the languages that all of your different teams speak. So just some examples of teams you might want to interface with. You have your support team, your product team, marketing and engineering, and it's worth considering what these teams are going to want out of your documentation. For instance, a product team might be looking for bettering the user experience through your docs, making sure you have good coverage of the product in your documentation. But support at the same time might be caring about reducing their ticket time, your interaction in a support ticket, by having support agents send documentation to customers. And then marketing cares about SEO, engineering cares about giving best practices. But also, again, think about what you can be getting out of these relationships as well. By working with the product team, you might get insight into the product roadmap, and that can help make your documentation less bumpy when you're planning for changes to the product. If you're working with support, consider that you have direct insight into the problems that customers are running into, and that can better inform things like your troubleshooting docs. And when you're working with marketing, you'll be getting insight on how they're speaking about the product so you can have consistency throughout your documentation. And because you're interfacing with all of these different parts of the company, consider the way that you can act as the glue between them. In my experience, I found myself working on a product launch where I saw marketing was using certain terminology for the product in their launch. And then I noticed that in internal engineering and product docs, they weren't using the same language. So I was in the position to be able to say, hey, I'm working with marketing and here's the terminology they're using. Got everyone in a room, got everyone on the same page, and the end result was just a much more consistent view for the product. So you should be aware, if you're not familiar with doing this, that there are, of course, challenges with working cross-functionally. There's a lot involved here. For one, consider that relationship building with all of these different teams is going to take time and investment. In my experience, you'll be dealing with churn, where if you spend months fostering a good relationship with, say, a product manager, and then that PM leaves and hands off the product to somebody else, you could be starting from square one. So it's good to account for that early. Also consider that when you're starting one of these relationships, you don't necessarily have clout with that team. They don't necessarily know what the docs can do for them. So it's worth considering that you're in a position where you might have to prove the value of the docs before you can start handing product feedback, for example. And so therefore, it's good to set your relationship expectations early to understand what you'll be able to provide, what they'll be able to provide for you without overloading yourself. And then, of course, as you're bringing more people in on the process, you could very well run into the too many cooks problem. And what I found with cross-functional docs relationships is you are balancing the desire to have docs with everyone's input, with product input and engineering input, with your ability to launch docs ever in any reasonable amount of time. So it's worth understanding your project expectations and really what insight is going to be most valuable so you're not gumming up the works too much. And then you'll also find that as you work with more and more teams, your meeting schedule is going to get more and more bulky. So set those expectations just to not overcommit yourself. So that was a very quick rundown. I probably got a little too eager on my slides. So if anyone wants to talk more about this, then I'm happy to do an unconference. I just jotted down some additional thoughts. And yeah, thank you so much for your time.